Tropical storm Debby continues to make its way toward the Florida Big Bend. And whether it becomes a hurricane or not, it really doesn't matter because the big deal here is going to be the potentially historic rainfall that we might see in areas in the southeastern U.S. So we're going to be talking about everything that's been going on in Florida today. The radars have been incredibly busy, all sorts of tornado warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings on the east side. And we'll talk about the impacts to South Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, speculate on what might happen longer range. That's all tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the description to this podcast. Use the coupon code.
Oh, 20 summer 2024.
If you do, you will get.
You'll get 10% off. Thank you.
Hey, that's all right. We're coming off a weekend. It's perfectly reasonable to miss a step here and there. So, so here we are. We've got Tropical Storm Debby, which, as I said in the open, my little opening spiel there, the big deal here, I think, and you would agree, is going to be the rainfall that's going to come out of all of this.
Well, sometimes tropical cyclones just outperform the models. I think the problem with this particular tropical cyclone, Joe, is that the models are having a tough time in trying to, make a forecast of more than, let's say, 24 or 48 hours down the road. The GFS seems content to hold Debbie pretty much over the southeastern United States for maybe the next week or so.
Well,
Meanwhile,
actually, yeah, and it retrogrades the core low westward into almost to Louisiana.
yeah, and meanwhile, the Canadian model, the European, they're moving it. They're moving it at a quicker pace. And then something else that we here in the Northeast have to look out for is that by this time next weekend, there apparently is some very there's going to be a very strong upper level cutoff low pressure system that'll be kind of like a pendulum, like swinging down through the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. And whether or not Debbie is anywhere near the Northeast by that time, we could see a consolidation, so to speak, of maybe a major rain event even up here. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, there's one upside to all of this is if the low does in whatever form it comes, if it does wind up moving up through the mid-Atlantic and into the Northeast, the upside will be that after it goes by, it should pull down some nice dry air on the backside. That's going to cover a good portion of the eastern United States, which oftentimes is what happens when hurricanes go by.
Absolutely. But again, the question here is that that pulling of the dry, pleasant air may be delayed based upon. That's another thing. The Europe both the models have this upper level system that's going to swing through the Great Lakes. They do have all of them have it, but in varying intensities. The European has it as a significant upper level disturbance moving across the Northeast by the end of next weekend. The GFS is going crazy with this thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is.
Well,
Uh, you know,
the way I've been looking at this is over the weekend with the large model differences. I sort of can see how either any of the solutions, let's just focus on the two, the global model solutions and the hurricane tracking models. Some of them are actually going the way of the GFS. Some of them are actually going the way of the European, the ICON, and the Canadian. And the way I've been looking at this is that when you go back in climatology and you look at storms like this and some of the weirder tracks, have we seen some very weird tracks of storms coming out of the eastern Gulf or the Southwest Atlantic that wind up going westward once they go inland in the Gulf states? Yes, that has happened. When I look at the European and the Icon and the Canadian, I see something. I see a track that makes more sense in the scheme of things. I'm not saying it's correct. I'm just saying that when I look at it, when you look at climatology, more storms behave the way the uh, European icon Canadian model show it, and less less the way the GFS shows it. So when you look at the broad picture, you kind of look at the European and the icon, the Canadian, and says, well, that kind of sort of makes a little more sense than what the GFS has. Not saying the GFS is wrong. I'm just kind of just looking at this in sort of a broad, in sort of a broad picture. And the fact is, we're not gonna know how this is all going to play out for at least another couple of days. We have to see how this all reacts to what happens to it when it gets into this no man's land of no steering currents. What exactly is it going to do?
And you may remember that when we were last together on Thursday, actually Wednesday, Thursday, a lot of the models were saying that this system was going to come up along the west side of Florida and then loop around to the northeast and then well out to sea. And I had some concerns because my daughter is going to be this week taking a cruise, a short cruise to Bermuda and back to New York. And so I was concerned. And now here we are just a few days later, and the pattern or the track is so much different. It only goes to show you that sometimes you really cannot look at these things much beyond 3 or 4 days because things change. And what we're looking at right now may again, as you just pointed out, may change again in another couple of more days as to where this thing ultimately is going to go.
Correct. So on that note, let's. I'm going to bring up the satellite loop, and while I'm doing that, I just want to say welcome to everybody on the chat board, and those of you who are not on the chat board and lurking in the background. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We're here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. The occasional Friday and Saturday when there's a storm around. Be sure you turn your notifications on. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you like the show, hit the like button. So on that particular note, let's go to the loop and see what Debbie's doing, and it's actually gotten much better organized. And if you look on this particular visible loop, which I haven't updated in about an hour, you can actually pick out, Joe. It looks like a closed eye wall here forming, or mostly formed, although it's filled with clouds. But you can see a distinct ring of convection uh, near where the center is, and right in there, like a little donut is beginning to form there. And I'm going to check the recon in a moment to see what kind of pressures that they're showing because it went down from 1,003 to 992 in about 2 hours, which was interesting. But this still has some time to strengthen fairly. If it strengthens rapidly, this still has time to get uh, you know, to at least a strong Cat 1 or maybe even a low grade Cat 2 before landfall.
I would not doubt, considering how warm that Gulf water is, that it could very well, very quickly, jump up to a possibly a Cat 2 before making landfall. But it's not so much the wind that is going to make this a dangerous storm. The slow movement, the fact that it is a tropical system, and I saw on the National Hurricane Center. Actually, it's not the National Hurricane Center. It's the WPC who does these maps concerning quantitative precipitation, and everywhere from Savannah, Georgia to Charleston, South Carolina, in that one zone, they have outlined the potential for 16 to 20 inches of rain over the next 2 or 3 days, and that's an impossible amount of rain to try to negotiate through, and that's what's going to make this storm memorable. This is going to be remembered as a very wet storm. And Joe, I mean, my goodness, if this thing truly does what the GFS is saying, more or less sits over one particular region of the country for about a week, that is the southeastern states, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like a week from now in the southeast in terms of overall rain. We may be looking at places that have over 2 feet of rain.
Yes, no question. And by the way, those words the word historic and catastrophic, they usually are. They're not used very often. Um, those are right off the Hurricane Center's advisory, so it's not just us that we're saying it.
Do you get the feeling, by the way? I don't know about you, but at one time in our life, when they retired a name, it was like, oh my goodness, they retired a name, Camille, like that. But do you get the idea that all of a sudden now, almost every storm, well, not every storm, but it seems like more often than not, storm systems, hurricanes, or even tropical storms come along, they do something, either tremendous winds or tremendous rain or something, and they get their name retired.
Oh, it's certainly, if we look at the number of storms that have been retired probably in the last 25 years, probably dwarfs what's been retired in the prior 50. I mean, I'm not 100% sure of that, but it does seem like, have these storms, and they're not just retiring them for the sake of retiring them. We've had a number of major hurricanes that deserve to have their names retired uh, for historical reasons. It does seem to happen. It seems like we were getting, these. And this is just another. If this, by the way, if this winds up doing something weird like the GFS does, we could chalk this up again to another instance where weird things are happening in the atmosphere.
By the way, Joe, are those your grandkids?
When I had yeah, those are my grandchildren.
Oh, they lovely.
Thank you. But that picture is probably about. Let me see how the baby looks. It's probably, I would say probably about a year old now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
I was answering a message and I had the page up on the screen unintentionally, but thank you for the compliment. I know a few people on the chat board have said the same thing, said some nice things. Thank you very, very much.
yeah,
I don't know if my daughter's going to be crazy about the fact that I made that mistake, but that's another conversation. Okay, why don't we go to the recon and take a look at the latest from there. And by the way, just a reminder, folks, we are live here at 7:47 p.m. Eastern time. So this is another one of those situations that if you're watching us later on tonight or overnight, obviously what you're seeing is dated. So you want to go to weather.gov for your local weather service, for your local weather information, and you want to go to nhc.noaa.gov for the National Hurricane Center. So the recon observations that I pulled up just a little while ago, it looks like the pressure down somewhere about 992. Um, I'm sorry, let me correct that. It looks like 995 on this measure, and I'm just eyeballing it. We'll see. Sometimes they wind up correcting things, and we have peak wind gusts between 55 and 60 knots on the reading. It's like at 60 knots there with the max wind. Let me see if that's the latest. Okay, so now they're still kind of flying around. So we go back. We'll pick up on the image that Levi likes to put up, and the plane is kind of just flying around in there. You can see it coming in from the northeast. Well, I'm not sure where exactly. Just looking at the wind barbs, so I'm thinking that the center of the wind barbs are right about here. So you're starting to see the stronger winds getting closer to where the center is, and those reds are that color red there is 55 to 60 knots, I believe. Yep, 55 to 60. And you notice even on land there are some wind gusts here around 45 to 55, at least from what the plane at flight level anyway, with what the plane is reporting in Western Florida, north of Fort Myers, I guess this is Fort Myers down here, so this is Tampa, I believe. No, I'm sorry. Uh, this would be this is probably Sarasota, Venice, Fort Myers up a little bit further. This could be Port Charlotte. Tampa's a bit further up. So anyhow, we'll come back to see what they're doing with this with regards to some current pressure readings and so on. And from the 5 p.m. advisory, we'll have the 8 p.m. advisory shortly. 27.7 north, 84.4 west, and that is the maximum sustained winds are 65 miles an hour. It's now moving straight north at 12, and at 5 p.m. the position is 120 miles west of Tampa, Florida, 125 miles southwest of Cedar Key. Okay, so it's going to go to the Florida Big Bend. Moving north at for 360 degrees at 12 miles an hour. Lowest pressure on the advisory was 992 millibars. And, again, the Hurricane Center highlighting the fact that Debbie expected to become a hurricane tonight and make landfall in the Florida Big Bend area on Monday, and will bring a major flood threat to the southeastern United States. And that's all, you know, that makes that's exactly what this is. I mean, this is going to be a major event when it comes to the rainfall. So why don't you take it over and check the radars and see what's going on? Let's go. We'll start looking down with Florida, and then we can also take a look at what's going on in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England with regards to some evening thunderstorms that we're dealing with.
Well, I've got, and there it is, the view from Tampa. This, I believe, is Tampa. Yeah, Tampa Bay, Ruskin, Florida. And somebody pointed out that you could see the eye, and the eye, I would presume, is this right here. You can actually see the spiral bands twisting round and round and getting smaller and smaller as we reach this particular point here in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. And the storm looks like it's tracking at a pretty good pace, Joe, off to the northeast. And indeed, it looks like the Big Bend area or the Panhandle area of Florida is in the bullseye, so to speak, for this particular system, which probably will be making landfall. I would think either very, very late tonight or maybe first thing in the morning on Monday. And again, you could see the spiraling bands of precipitation which reach out already all the way to the Florida East Coast. Here's one band, for example, that's going right up the so called Space Coast of Florida, which includes Cape Canaveral, the Kennedy Space Center. And then if you head back to the west, you can see that other bands are rolling across portions of central and western Florida Peninsula. And again, the actual center of the storm is still out here over the eastern Gulf. But again, it's tracking at this moment at least, a fairly good clip to the northeast and likely will be making landfall probably sometime very late tonight or first thing in the morning tomorrow.
All right, we'll keep going.
Well, let's
Uh,
see.
well,
Let's
let me just check. Let me just check Tornado HQ because there's been a lot of severe weather going on down in Florida. And actually, at the moment, we've got one, two, three, four tornado warnings that are up. Sorry, three. One just expired. We have one that's going to expire at 7 minutes. This was in Brevard County near Cocoa Beach, moving north at 30 miles an hour. Uh, and then the next one is in Manatee and Sarasota uh, and counties, and that's a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado. Was located near Gulf Gate Estates, or 9 miles southeast of Sarasota, moving north at 45. I mean, these things are flying. These tornadoes. The newest one is in Columbia and Union County counties in Florida. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located over Providence, or 7 miles northwest of Worthington Springs. Worthington Spring, moving northwest at 30 miles per hour. So those are the tornado warnings. And we also have, I'm just checking, it's the expired one, another expired one. I don't see any other severe thunderstorm warnings in Florida, but it's all tornado warnings that we're seeing. And let's go to SPC for just a moment while you're spitting. You just went further north on the radar. Um, I'm just checking SPC. There have been so far. It's two confirmed tornadoes on their storm report for today so far. So now, which radar are we looking at now?
This is Tallahassee, and This is in the Panhandle area, and you can see that the bands of precipitation associated with Debbie are now moving more or less from southeast to northwest. One particular band with probably some embedded lightning and thunder came on through Tallahassee a short while ago, maybe about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. It has now moved far to the north and west of Tallahassee, but there is more significant or possible moderate to heavy rainfall that is again curling around the center of the storm, working its way. And actually, when you look at this perspective, when you remember, of course, that the movement of air around anticyclonic systems, tropical cyclones, the movement of air masses is in a counterclockwise fashion. Further south, the cells of precipitation are coming in from the east southeast and moving toward the west northwest. And here you see Tallahassee, and they already got hit once, and it looks like with more precipitation off to the southeast, they're going to be getting hit once again. There's actually, as you can see in the final frames of the loop, after they've gone through that one narrow band of precip, there now seems to be like an opening in the precipitation. So they may actually have a period now where nothing is going to happen, no precipitation at all, before a new round hits probably sometime later this evening or late tonight. So that's what's going on down in Tallahassee. Let's take a look at the other side of the state. This is Melbourne, Florida. Again, I mentioned before that the bands of precipitation with Debbie are so extensive that they're even affecting adversely parts of the Space Coast. This is Cape Canaveral that you see here in the middle of the screen. And indeed, there has been a narrow but concentrated line of showers and storms affecting the Cape and moving northward. And they too will probably get into a period of tranquility for a little while before, again, another round moves their way from the south and west. So you could see, Joe, that a lot of things are happening in Florida. We also mentioned Pennsylvania, and in fact, let's check out. This is Dover Air Force Base in Delaware, and you can see that they do have some rather significant shower and thunderstorm activity over portions of eastern Virginia, the Delmarva Peninsula region, and that is moving off in a northeasterly fashion. None of this activity is obviously close enough to affect the New York metropolitan area, although New York, we want to go further north here. You could see that there was a line of showers and possibly some embedded thunder that came rolling across the New York City area. And now some of those showers, which have diminished a bit in intensity, now moving across central and eastern sections of Long Island. If I heard correctly, I was only half listening to the evening news. I think on the sports tonight, they said that at Yankee Stadium, they had been holding the game up because of wet weather and showery, rainy weather. Here's an area that's in central Jersey that is diminishing some as it's moving southward. And up here in Massachusetts, in fact, let me take a look here in the Boston radar, as we know it as BOX. And you can see that here's Boston, and this whole band of showers and embedded storms now moving through portions of southeastern New England, and including eastern sections of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and again, southeastern Massachusetts. And here's an area that is apparently just missing Cape Cod and the islands. Coming up here, you could see just to the south and east of Nantucket, and that area, again, moving along with this band to the east southeast. So there's action in Florida, but there's also action here in New England. Oh, one more area, and I do this only because I was up there just a short time ago, and that is Vermont. And you could see here, this is Colchester, Vermont, and I was, Joe, just a short time ago, right here at Springfield, Vermont, where they had Stellafane this weekend. It basically was a dry day yesterday, although very humid. We had a tremendous downpour up there on Friday night between 6:30 and 7 o'clock. And watching the local weather forecasters out of Vermont, New Hampshire, on some of the TV stations last night. They were warning. They were saying, this afternoon there might be some localized area of heavy thunderstorm activity, and indeed that looks like to be the case for places like Rutland, Vermont, and adjacent South and East Springfield, Vermont, and Joe, this really, this was an eye opener for both Renata and I. One of the local forecasters up here, they have a station, an NBC affiliate that is seen both in Burlington and also Burlington, Vermont, and Plattsburgh, New York. And right here is Lake Champlain, and the meteorologist or the forecaster who's doing the weather giving you the water temperature of Lake Champlain, 82 degrees.
Oh
And
no, yeah, I've been to Lake Champlain, and I've been to Lake George on the New York State side, and yeah, that water gets really warm up there, believe it or
yeah,
not.
yeah. Oh, and
Um,
there's another very heavy storm. Looks like it's passing just to the north of Montreal. So you could see that even though you might think, oh, let's go up into upstate New York, let's go to northern New England. It must be cooler and more refreshing and drier. No, it's take my word for it. It wasn't. It was just as sticky, just as icky, just as showery and thundery up there as it has been down here for us over these past week or 10 days. And we are hoping that some drier air, an influx of drier air, will begin to impinge and move down from the north and actually may get as far south as our area here in the New York metropolitan area by later Tuesday or Wednesday of this week.
Brandon Doherty hit the tip jar. Thank you, Brandon, for hitting super chat tonight. And I noticed a few people hit super thanks uh, during the day today. Actually, the same person hit it twice. Thank you for hitting super chat. Here's a U.S. satellite loop, and it gives you kind of perspective here. We've got this weather front that tried to move through yesterday. We had a lot of thunderstorms around Friday night. We had a lot of thunderstorms around last night. We have less tonight in in our in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England and down to Virginia. You do see some lightning strikes going on, and of course, you see Debbie here in again a lot of it does have time before it gets to the Florida Big Bend. It's going to turn northeastward, and it's starting to slow down too, so that's going to be problematic. And the bands, the lightning strikes and the bands coming around from off the southeast Gulf into Florida. Much of the state is showing, as Joe showed you on the radar, and you can see here on this regional view busy radars with the rain into coastal South and North Carolina. A lot of you have been asking me if I'm going to be okay. I just so you know, I'm going to show you, on this map, this the North Carolina state line and the Tennessee state line are probably right there. Okay, I am way north of all of this. So unless it comes in, if it does what the GFS does and it takes the low, somewhere across southern Georgia westward, then maybe I'll get some bands of rain that'll come up here at some point. But at the moment, no, I'm good. Okay. I appreciate, though, that you're asking to make sure that I'm going to be in one piece. As far as rains into coastal South Carolina, again, this is sort of the lead stuff. It's that whole area with the core, and it's really gotten much better defined here on the radar, Joe. You can see that the convection is wrapping around the center relatively quickly here. So again, don't be shocked if you wind up seeing a last minute burst of intensification once it goes on to land. The Storm Prediction Center is just issued a new tornado watch for Florida. It replaces the one that they just had and expired. The only difference here, it doesn't go quite as far south as the last one, so it's more like central and north Florida to the Georgia state line. And this watch is going to be in effect until 6 a.m. So it's going to be in effect all night long, that makes total sense. We had a marginal risk from northern New Jersey and northeastern Pennsylvania, north and east. We still do. Marginal risk in southern Minnesota to southern northern Iowa, and a marginal to slight risk back from Montana into parts of eastern Idaho and northwestern Wyoming. Now, the next couple of days, of course, it's going to be we're going to be dealing with severe weather risk from Debbie. A slight risk is being indicated. Coastal South Carolina, southeast and southern Georgia, northern Florida. That comes with a 5% tornado risk, which is pretty high, and a 2% area that goes to the North Carolina state line. Also, another area of 2 to 5% tornado risk, and this is the system that is going to be coming into the Northeast on Tuesday, southern Minnesota, Northeast Iowa, and Southwest Wisconsin. And when we look at the categorical risk, marginal risk cuts across southeastern Massachusetts, southern Connecticut to right touching New York City, northern New Jersey, uh, Pennsylvania crosses Pennsylvania. The southern part of the state is just in general thunderstorms, and then it cuts off very sharply central New Jersey southward, indicating no thunderstorms. So there's sort of like gaping hole in the middle. From there westward into the lower Ohio Valley, the lower and middle Mississippi Valley, back to the southern and central plains where no thunderstorms are forecast. But we have a slight risk that goes from Maine across central New England, much of upstate New York, northern Pennsylvania, into northern Ohio. And then on day three, and I would look for this to be updated tomorrow. I wouldn't be shocked if they add a slight risk in here. They've got a marginal risk southeastern Massachusetts, back westward to New York City, the Hudson Valley, almost all of Connecticut, Long Island, New Jersey, most of Pennsylvania, except the extreme north, northern Maryland, northern West Virginia, back through Ohio. And then from Debbie, we've got a small area of marginal risk, coastal South Carolina and coastal Georgia. WPC uh, is, it's pretty impressive. They had a 20-inch plus area, Joe, which they've kind of backed off from now, but they still have every bit of 15 to 20 in that yellow section there, and 10 to 15 in the darker yellow that goes from northern Florida. And by the way, a lot of the heavy rain that's going to happen in northern and northeastern Florida, this is the one area that's still dealing with drought conditions. So there is a little, I mean, you don't want 10 to 15 inches of rain all at once, because a lot of that's going to run off, but some of that is going to be, a good chunk of that at time will be beneficial with respect to the drought. And, I kind of look at WPC's map here and I'm thinking in their mind, maybe they're looking at the European and the icon and saying, and the Canadian saying that one has the more likely outcome because they do have a 7 to 10 inch stripe of rain from Long Island to central and South Jersey and 5 to 7 inches southeastern Mass, the lower Hudson Valley, across the rest of New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania, south into Virginia and North Carolina.
I have on. I'm sharing it right now. The tropical storm rainfall forecast, which is was created this afternoon just before 3 o'clock, and is valid all the way through next Friday at 8 p.m. And if you have it up or can bring it up,
It's up now.
it's up there, and you can see this is what I was talking about before. In fact, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and from Savannah, Georgia, all the way to Charleston, South Carolina, we have this zone of very dark red. I don't even think you can call it red. I mean, this is red just outside on the periphery. This is, I don't know what you would call this, a very dark red. And if you look at the legend here, you can see that that is equivalent to 16 to 20 inches of rain. That's a tremendous amount of rain in a rather small area right here. The red, the lighter shade of red, if you want to call it lighter, is 12 to 16 inches, which runs from the North Carolina, South Carolina border at the coast, all the way south and west down through the Florida Panhandle, just to the west, just to the east, I should say, of Tallahassee. Now, Mr. Chiaffi is up here, I believe, and he is outside of that zone. The lightest shade of green is 1 to 2 inches of rain,
Yeah,
and
I'm in that. Yeah, I'm in the. They have no rain. Well, I'm in less than 1 to 2 inches.
yeah, but can you see
Yeah,
there's a little? You can see right here that there's a little
yeah,
thing of green. That's
yeah.
about approximately where you are, right?
No, I'll go a little bit west of there,
Like over here.
and then a shade south. right about there.
right about there.
Mhm.
Well, the fact is that they've got a little break off of green here of 1 to 2 inches suggests that you're not going to be home free. I mean, you're going to get something. It doesn't look like you're going to be getting
Right,
probably.
but it'll be the kind of thing where if I didn't know there was a tropical storm there, it would be just a summer afternoon in Georgia where I get a downpour
Yeah,
or
yeah,
two.
yeah. So for all of you out there who are concerned about, oh, it's going to hit Georgia, and I heard parts of Georgia are going to get 20 inches of, where Joe is up on that 2,200-foot mountain. Joe pretty much is safe.
Yeah.
You'll get a
Yeah,
little bit of.
I don't want that red section up here with the mountains because I've seen what happens here with regards to the rivers and streams at lower elevations and how they flood. So yeah, I don't want that. Not
No,
here anyway.
I know that you don't want that. So
All
anyway,
right, let's. I'm gonna go to the European upper air so everybody can kind of so we can get an understanding of what's going on, why is this behaving the way it is, and what does it mean down the road. So and I'm using the European because this is the model that is doing this thing where it's trying to bring it up the coast. So here we are, it's Sunday night. We have a shortwave trough right here running down the Appalachians, which is responsible for the thunderstorms that have been going on scattered up and through the Northeast. This was actually last night. So at that point, Debbie was down in coming off of Cuba. You've got this northwest flow out of Canada, Bermuda high over here, upper high over there in Colorado. Okay, so that kind of sets the stage of where we're going. Now, here we are Sunday night. That short wave in the east is lifting up and out. The Bermuda high is building westward. The western high is actually kind of not so much building, but it's just holding its own into the Mississippi River Valley. So, uh, Debbie comes in the Florida Big Bend, the upper feature, is that donut you see over North Florida tomorrow afternoon. It's in a no man's land here because you've got the Bermuda high flow on one side, you've got this upper high flow on the other side. The westerlies in the upper atmosphere from Northern Virginia northward, they don't go far enough south to pick it up. So it just gets sort of left there to its own devices, sort of responding to ebbs and flows and the strength of the ridge in the ocean and the high in the west that by the time we get to Tuesday is in New Mexico. Now, what the European and the icon are suggesting is that if as we get past the middle part of the week, you see up in Canada the short wave that's dropping down, that acts as a bit of a lever to bring those westerlies down a little bit further, and then that upper feature representing Debbie gets lifted up to the northeast, up along or just inland of the coast or just off the coast, and then out it goes. So that's the European. The GFS is not that different. Uh, it does have what the GFS suggests really is that the same sort of things happen here with Debbie. It's in that no man's land. It's a little weaker with the Bermuda high, so it wants to take it off the Florida east coast, and then it starts to build the ridges on both sides. You got this much deeper shortwave trough up in Canada that comes down into the plains. It just completely bypasses it, and then
right.
and then on its own that northern shortwave probably sucks up some of that tropical moisture that's going to be left up and down the eastern seaboard and just draws it northward with a sharp cold front going by. It's a plausible solution, and when we look at this on the surface, it's a plausible solution. I don't know that it's the most likely solution. I think the European icon have a better view of this. The one thing, Joe, that I want to just point out the GFS was the only model that was taking this, if you remember last week, the GFS was the only model that was taking this into the Eastern Gulf. All the other models were had it off the east coast of Florida and in some cases anyway, going up and out. So the GFS was correct up until now to take it into the Eastern Gulf because that's where it wound up. And So I want to bear that in mind. Uh, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be right with the second part of this, but uh, you know, it did get it correct for the first part, and this is how it behaves on the surface. And of course, if this were to happen for the southeast and for northern Florida, we're talking about a ton of rain here. And in the northeast, we've got this, you've got this trough coming through Monday night into Tuesday morning, most of the action in upstate New York and New England, and then a second follow-up trough that comes in for Tuesday night into Wednesday that will probably bring showers and thunderstorms separate from the tropical system. And then, of course, we've got this tropical southerly flow and the way the upper air sets up, the GFS does bring more rain, uh, you know, rain and downpours uh, later Thursday night and during the day Friday and also on Saturday, and then maybe even into next Sunday before it finally pushes on out to the east. So that again is the GFS's view. The Europeans' view on all of this and the icon's view. I'll show the icon as well. Yeah. See, so what I'm saying, it's sort of a smoother look here. Comes off the Georgia coast, meanders around, strengthens a bit, goes back in near Charleston. The inland low gets up to about Raleigh, Durham, and then just starts pushing northeastward from there and off the New Jersey coast. And we get some, we get rain and I think the key to whether you get heavy rain from something like this or not is how much of the core is going to be left. But somebody asked me, is this going to be another Ida? Now, the thing with Ida was that was a Cat 4 when it went inland, and the core held together and came right over, eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New
Right.
York City, Long Island. I don't right now. I don't know what the core is going to look like at this, we're talking at the end of this coming week, or maybe even into next weekend. So it's a long way to go. And on the icon, by the way, which is also like kind of has a smoother look here, uh, comes in, goes out on the other side, strengthens off the North Carolina coast. It's down to like a 960 on the a 969 or 59. It's down to a 950. Let me make sure my eyes are not deceiving me. Yeah, that looks like a 959 Cat 3 going into North Carolina, and then moves northward, and it only goes out to 120 hours, but it kind of has the same idea. This would suggest, by the way, that you would have, if the icon were correct, if you're looking at the structure here, this certainly suggests to me like we're talking about something with a stronger core.
And what did this is the 18Z. The 12Z I know goes a little further out.
Right, so I'll go to the 12Z. Yeah, and I mean the 12Z is not that different. It actually got it down to 952 on the icon, and it's got a really wrapped up hurricane here off the Virginia coast that goes northeast. I mean, we probably would get some rain and wind, a lot of rain and wind out of this, uh, but it'll behave like a pretty rather fierce nor'easter if this were correct. But you know what, folks? It's got to get there first, and we don't even know that that's going to be the case. And I think we might have the 18Z. Is the 18Z European out yet?
I
No,
think
it's
goes
not.
90 hours or
Yeah, that goes out to 90 hours, so it really wouldn't take us out far enough. So, we're talking about here, something that is very dynamic and we've got a long way to go regards to whether, how this is all going to play out. So, a lot to think about in the coming days. And you and I are going to be here every day this week. Uh, no plans for days off. We'll be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and if need be, Friday and Saturday.
okay. Well, we'll see how that all pans out. It certainly you
Check
cannot.
with check with the executive producer. Tell her to make a notation.
Well, this is going to be an interesting week. Let's put it that way. On a day by day basis, we'll see how this all pans out. But at the moment, if you're anywhere down in the southeast, especially if you're in the Florida Peninsula, I hope you have a sump pump because you're going to need it.
All right, and one more thing. Let's with the 8 o'clock advisory from the Hurricane Center. which of course, now that I'm trying to bring it up, I guess everybody and their mother is going into nhc.noaa.gov at the same. Oh, here we go. Finally, at 8 o'clock, um,
Rich Rosmansky says 70-mile-per-hour wind.
70 miles. Yes, 28.1, 84.1 is the position. 150 miles southwest of Cedar Key, or 160 um, nautical miles west of Tampa, moving north at 12. 992 is the pressure. And if I check on the recon, they still haven't put a plot here, a pressure plot on the map. So, um, so nothing has changed, at least while we've been on the air. So don't forget, folks, if you're watching this on a replay, we're at 8:20 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you go to weather.gov for the latest weather information, or nhc.noaa.gov for the Hurricane Center. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. Use the coupon code.
Summer 2024.
If you do, you will get.
You'll get 10% off. I have news for you, Joe.
Yes.
Guess what?
Why?
We're only 2 away from 100 likes.
Oh, okay.
So if you haven't hit the like button right now, do it. And so we can ring the bell. We haven't had 100 likes in a long time.
No, and just want to thank Brandon Doherty for hitting super chat tonight. Most appreciated. I'm sitting at 99.
I see 112. Thank you.
Oh, okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, folks. Have it. By the way, I'll be doing. I don't know if everybody's aware, but I usually do 2 videos a day before the live show. I do a weather in a minute video, and I also do a weather in 5, which I didn't get to do today, but I'll do them. I'll be doing them tomorrow. So there are updates that come up during the day. Also, check the community page, because I do put posts up on the community page with links to my website and to my subscription website, if you so choose. Sometimes I put up freebies. So make sure you check those out during the day, and we'll see you all tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Night, night.
Good night, folks.